This is just so random, but today I'm going to teach you how to travel on a budget. And the funny thing is, this slide was actually created last 2021. I did this one during the pandemic, and yeah, I believe the experiences that I have here are related during that time. It might only be applicable during the pandemic, or it might still be applicable right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to recall the points that I wanted to say here. And at the same time, I'll try to give you more information on how to travel on a budget post pandemic era. So, yeah, a lot of us right now are planning to do travel, like solo travel, family travel. And we all know that after the pandemic, the travel industry really went boom again. But at the same time, there are a lot of costs associated with it because a lot of economies are still recovering. A lot of the companies are still recovering. So I think by default, right now, traveling is more expensive pre pandemic, and at the same time, there are a lot more things to consider today or during this time compared to what we've had before. But I think basically the things that I wrote here are general principles per se that you should consider when you want to really travel on a budget. I I have separated this one to different categories. Like I have flights, accommodation, and the travel itinerary, but I think we could start with flights. I might update this one, or I might just inject the updated information as we talk. So, yeah, it's cringy because this is my thought process 2 years ago. I'm not so sure if it's still my thought process, but here we go. Okay, how to travel on a budget, episode one, flights. But we're in episode six of Infinitely Better Every Day. So, anyway, my first tip is know your location. Oh no, I. I'm so sorry. This slide was reversed. So, yeah, I think the three principles that you should learn in terms of traveling or in terms of booking flights is you should, number one, know your location, like origin, destination. Number two, you need to strategize with the dates. And number three, you should maximize the promos that is available in the market. So let's start with know your location. So in terms of traveling on a budget, you should always remember your origin. So if you really want to travel and just have like a minimal cost in terms of spending, it's logical to say that the cheapest or the most budget friendly destination would be somewhere in Asia. If you're like for me, I'm from the Philippines. So an Asian flight is definitely cheaper than a European flight, right? So this is like a sample plane ticket that I've actually had before. This one is a Taiwan plane ticket from Philippines to Taiwan round trip. It's only 7,000, but Philippines to Vienna round trip is 40,000. So you really need to consider your budget in the first place. But I cannot prevent you though from traveling to Europe if you're from Asia. If it's really one of your goals, or if it's really something that you've saved up for. But generally speaking, if you have like limited amount of money, then strategizing to travel on a nearer country might be better for you. But yeah, this is what I want to say to everyone. Do not just go to a specific country just because that's the country that you can afford at the moment. A lot of us, we try to, like, for example, your goal is to actually travel to Europe, right? But then you cannot save for that if you keep on traveling to the nearby countries just for the sake of traveling or just for the sake of posting it on Instagram. So I think right now, In terms of our money, we need to be more conscious if we are really spending for something satisfactory for us, or if it's just like to please people. This doesn't apply though if you have unlimited amount of budget. Like you could travel here, you could travel there. But I think for me per se, for example, I really want to travel to Japan. So I will deprive myself of traveling to other nearby countries if I can afford it, even if I can afford it, because I want to save properly so that I could go to that destination that I want. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's your money, it's your it's your choice whether or not you would go for uh, the place you want to go. But yeah, I think, yeah, I'm just laughing because this is just like a straightforward fact, but basically it's cheaper if it's nearer, but not all the time, but in principle, that's how it works. Second, I think in order also to save money, you should choose low demand dates. And I wrote here simple economics, like demand, if the demand is low, then the price is low. And if the demand is high, the price is high. Well, this one is actually problematic in a sense because during the pandemic, the price of airline, since it became a necessity for some, because there's no other way to like travel, land travel was actually constrained on some areas. And I think, does this still work? If the demand is low, then the price is low. And if the demand is high, the price is high. Mm. But I remember this doesn't happen all the time, right? Because, for example, even if the demand is high, but there are a lot of, oh, it's just hard to explain. Hmm. Yeah, this one has changed because, yeah, as mentioned, during the pandemic, plane, plane rides became a necessity. And I cannot simply constrain it to this kind of rule because there are instances that even if the demand is high, the price is not necessarily high because for a certain route there would be uh, a lot of budget airlines, or should I say there would be a lot of flights within the day. But then even if the demand is low, it doesn't necessarily mean that the price is low because, yeah, I'm getting confused on this one. But I think my point would just be choose low demand dates in a sense that you should choose those that are not mm, are not like, oh, I have the pictures here. Anyway, never mind. But I wrote here not all the time routes where budget airline goes. Mm, yeah, now it's making sense because I think my point here is there are certain routes where budget airline goes, and so it's even if it's high demand, since in that route there will be a budget airline, then you might still be able to steal like a good deal. Unlike for certain routes that would only be flown, like only premier airlines fly there, then basically you cannot really secure a good deal, perhaps. But when I say low demand, you need to avoid certain dates when there are festivals, there are sports days, or there are holidays. So unless this is really your goal, right? So, for example, you would go to a certain country to experience the festival. So don't need to avoid that, or you need to go to, for example, you need to go to Australia to watch the Australian Open or watch the Grand Prix. then go ahead, do that. But generally speaking, if you do not want to pay twice or triple the amount, you really need to avoid the festival, sports, and holidays. So this is what I meant by high demand. Also, in terms of uh, yep, you could also check the seasons, the weather, the day of the week. I remember flights in Taiwan are cheap on June, July, August because that's the storm season and it's a rainy season and people do not necessarily want to go to a certain place when it's kind of rainy. It's same with the different routes here in the Philippines. If it's like a typhoon and those certain months would be typhoon months, then the flights going to the beaches are generally cheaper. Same with the seasons. For countries with four seasons, if a certain if a certain what's that if a certain month or a certain week there would be like a cherry blossoms bloom, then that's the most expensive and everything. Also, in terms of day of the week, this one I have not proven it yet because different airlines would really have like different different take on this one. But usually, um, generally speaking, flights on a Friday and flights on a Monday are the most expensive flights. But sometimes everything's just constant. But the thing is, you need to check on those things. If it's better for you to fly on a Tuesday or better for you to fly on a weekday and avoid the weekend rush, perhaps. And yep, I said okay. The next slide would be there is a shortcut. Hmm, yeah, I think my point here is there's a lot of considerations, right? But the shortcut that I found before was using Skyscanner. The good thing about Skyscanner, I just cannot show the web right now. But before, the thing is, the reason why I like Skyscanner is if you're undecided where to go, you could just put there like the origin, you put the origin, and then in terms of destination, you could just click the explore everywhere. And then if you're not sure which month, you could just which dates, you could just choose the whole month, and then it will generate the cheapest weeks of a certain month. And yeah, it could also give you a lot of options in terms of the different airlines that you could try. However, in terms of Skyscanner, I don't directly book in Skyscanner perhaps per se. I still book directly with the airline websites or airline apps, official apps, because in terms of if I would need a certain refunds, then it's gonna be easier. So I just look into Skyscanner to see if there are good deals. So but there are times when I actually book via Skyscanner when the price is really way different from the official airline. So if it's really like very far off from each other, then I would use Skyscanner. However, this was 2021. This is what I've used before. But right now, in terms of searching flights, I think Google Flights is much more advanced and the number of airlines being generated is like I think it's the whole database in and of itself. But I think I might need more research in terms of Google Flights. But Google Flights is what I use right now in terms of searching flights. Also, you don't need an app for that. You could just go directly in Google and then search or just type flights at google.com. But as I've mentioned, I think I might need more research on that. We could discuss that on another video on how we can make the most out of it because I've seen videos recently that you could actually get alerts There's like special alerts in Google Flights that would also that would make you like that would give you like the best deals in terms of your flights. But as mentioned, we should still research on that. And then the next one would be avail airline promos. Yeah, this one is a piece of sale. Cebu Pacific piece of sale. Yeah, airline promos. I think the main principle here is you just need to be alert in terms of when these promos happen. But I'm gonna tell you later how you could catch the promos happening. But well, the thing is, pizza sale is actually real. I mean, it's not necessarily 1 peso, but it's way cheaper than like a regular price. So just an example, one thing that I bought. This is pre-pandemic. This I think I bought this one 2020. Yeah, 2020 for a 2021 flight. So what I did was book a Manila to Japan one way. It's just 850 pesos, no bags, just like 7 kilogram, like the flight itself. It's just 80 USD or 850 pesos, which is quite cheap, which is very cheap. So yeah, if I would add a bag, then it might be like an additional 850 and such. But regardless, it's a cheap price for like a 4 hour. It's a 4 hour flight from Manila to Japan, and having this kind of price is actually a good deal already. So yeah, how do you know when these things would happen or when will airline would have their promos? You need to subscribe to their newsletter. You could also be like a member of the airline, and you should actually follow their social media and learn from the past. When I say learn from the past, for example, you've been following. So, for example, for me, I've been following Cebu Pacific for quite some time already, and I know that they would have a sale every Independence Day. And so, before Independence Day, I should know by then that I need to be alert before Independence Day for certain promos, or you are sure that a certain company or a certain airline company would have their promos every time it's their anniversary. So you should take note of those things that, oh, okay, every this day they would celebrate an anniversary, they would sell a lot of promo tickets. Then you should be aware of that. So yeah, be aware of the promo dates, and if they give discount codes. For example, you would buy uh, certain certain product from a partner that they have. So yeah, they might issue some discount codes or that, or you could follow social media personalities that actually issue discount code. You know, like when you click this link, you'll get 5%. There's no harm in using those links, and you've helped the influencer, and at the same time you're gonna get the discount, so it's a win-win situation anyway. But just make sure that in terms of clicking links, you're really clicking like legitimate links. Yeah, you just have trust issues in terms of links. But yeah, you should be alert in terms of when they do these promo dates, and you could really save a lot. You're gonna say to me, "Oh, damn, it's quite hard. It's there's a lot of consideration." I think that's the price we're actually paying if we really want to travel on a budget. So because if you have like an infinite amount of money, you won't necessarily try to watch out for these things. But if we are operating on like a budget, or our resources are constrained, then I think spending like a few hours or a few minutes just to strategize these things are actually worth it in the long run. So you could have savings really. Yeah, things to consider. I think this one I really added the things to consider because during the time when I was doing this one, there's a lot of cancellations in terms of the flights because This was still uh, a lot of countries or a lot of areas are still doing localized lockdowns. So meaning even if you've had the flight booked for quite some time already, but then during your travel date there would be a lockdown, or it will or someone will get sick like along the way. Then these are the things that you really should consider. But I think in general this should still apply uh, now in terms of rebooking, rerouting, and refundability. So let's discuss rebooking first. So rebooking is, yeah, you could just rebook the flight. Uh, this one, limited, unlimited. Yeah. During the pandemic, a lot of airlines are giving unlimited rebooking options because it's an uncontrolled event, right? We really don't know. So I think that's the leeway that they give to their clients. Okay, just keep the money on us. We're gonna give you a rebooking option, unlimited. So I think the consider. I'm sorry for the slide, but I think the consideration here is if it's with rebooking costs or without rebooking costs. So some would give you like unlimited and free rebooking costs. So even if you try to rebook countless of times, they're not going to charge a rebooking cost. But right now, I'm not seeing the unlimited option anymore. When I say limited, I think some airlines before would only offer you could rebook for free up until the third rebooking. And then after that, it would entail a cost and such. So, yep. Yeah, I think this is the cost that you should also remember if uh, in terms of rebooking. So this is something that you should be really considering. I think there would be okay. Let's backtrack first. I think for the airlines, they would have different tiers in terms of their prices. There would be like economy saver, super saver, and such, and then there would be the option of flexibility. And then they're saying there that you won't need to you won't need to pay a certain amount of money if you choose that because it can be rebooked anyway and such. And then for the super savers or the economy, like the lowest tier, check the clauses because some of them cannot be rebooked unless there would be uh, the cancellations would be on them. So if you're really sure that you're going to be traveling on a specific date and you are super sure that nothing would ever conflict on those travel dates, then you could say, or you could really purchase those that cannot be rebooked. But if you're still like 50-50, you're not super sure, then I think getting the option with the flexibility would be much better. But I think it's also important for us to see the fair difference clauses. This is what a lot of people do not necessarily consider in terms of their flexibility options on the airlines. So a lot of people assume that if the airlines give them flexibility, then regardless of when will they rebook or regardless of their ticket, it's still gonna be like the same. They're still not gonna pay anything. Well, some airlines would have those kind of clauses, but majority of the airlines, especially the budget ones, even if you're gonna rebook for free, you still need to pay the fare difference. So, for example, like the example here in the graph, uh, April 2020, the price is 450, and then you want to rebook it on April 2021. So on top of the rebooking fee, or if the rebooking fee is free, you still need to pay the fare difference, which is 500 minus 450 is 50 pesos. So you could do that. So what will happen then if, for example, uh, fare one is 450, right? And then a year later, it's going to be 400. They're not going to refund you on that majority of times. I'm not sure. I haven't tried like an airline that I have rebooked and then they refunded me. of the fare difference because the second date was actually lower. But usually, if it's lower, nothing's gonna happen. But if it's higher, then you need to pay the fare difference. Yeah, this is where it might get expensive. So as I mentioned before, basically, if you have purchased the ticket on on a promo date, and then you will transfer it on a date that is not like a promo date, and then you might pay like a substantial amount of money. So a lot of people would say, "Oh, it's not. It's then it's not worthy to rebook it." Yeah, that's the risk that you're paying, like in terms of rebooking. That's why if you're really like on a budget, the first thing that you really need to consider is you're sure that you're gonna travel on those dates, so you could avoid these things. And if ever there are certain fortuitous events or things that are beyond your control, like a typhoon and everything, make sure you read the fine print of your tickets and then check whether or not what are the options that you are entitled to. So some airlines, if they're the ones who canceled, then you have the options to get or refund right away and such. But I'm not so sure on the other airlines, but usually that's how it goes for from what I've tried. The second thing that you should also consider is rerouting. So that's another option in terms of if you want to cancel or rebook your ticket. So the thing is, rerouting options are not that common anymore. But I've seen these options on more premier airlines. But right now, I haven't researched properly if this option still exists. But the thing is, a lot of the airline companies really just want to get your money, right? So if you've changed your mind, they still want you to travel with them. So some would offer like rerouting from the name in itself. Like, for example, I initially wanted to go to Japan, and then I want to rebook, and then I want to reroute it to Korea. Then you could also check if that's possible. But as I mentioned, this might still entail cost. So as much as possible, you should be sure that you're going to be traveling. When it comes to refundability, the reason why I highlighted this one before is during the pandemic, a lot of the airlines really just canceled, and since there is an indefinite, the dates of return is indefinite. They don't know when they're gonna return. They don't know when the governments would put clearances on the airports. Then refunds before are, should I say, uh, more consumer friendly in a sense. So in terms of refundability, uh, before they've had options on travel vouchers. Usually it's just an equal. Like you have 100, and then they're gonna give you a voucher worth 100. But make sure that you're sure in terms of travel vouchers. I think you need to remember that they could only be used for flights or for flight add-ons. Second, it's a sort of like operates like a prepaid load, and you could use it as a deduction to your new bill if ever you're going to be purchasing a new ticket from that airline company. And be sure that uh, you know the expiration dates. I think a lot of people really had a lot of concerns during the pandemic because they didn't know or they weren't able to call the airlines on the expiration. So I think some of the airlines didn't apply like an automatic extension. That actually happened to me. There was no automatic extension of my ticket, even if it was a pandemic before. So what happened was I didn't know that I needed to call the airline just for my ticket to be extended. And so I there was like a lapse date, or the calling date already lapsed, and so I wasn't able to recover my ticket. But yeah, the clauses before was, if you're having, like, if they're gonna return the amount to you, you need to spend it on a certain date or a certain time frame. But right now, what I'm seeing is if they're issuing a travel voucher, it's unlimited. You could just it's sort of like, as I mentioned, it's sort of like a prepaid load, but you still need to check the expiration of your travel vouchers. Okay, next one is in terms of refunds, cash refunds. Some cash refunds, the refunds are equal. It's the same. This one happened. We purchased a ticket for a June 2021 ticket to Incheon Airport, and since Korea is not accepting any tourists during that time, we were informed by Cebu Pacific that we have the option to refund. Uh, we have the option to rebook and refund. So we didn't choose the rebook because we're not yet sure what's gonna happen, right? So my friends and I, we just, okay, let's just get our money back then. So we did the refund, and what we've spent was the same as what we have received back, and it took around 3 months to get there, or to get the money back. I think the risk here is in terms of refund, the currency that you've used in paying. Yeah, even if it's gonna be, for example, I've paid, for example, I've paid in USD. So even if I paid in USD during that time, but the exchange rate when it was returned to me, and I wanted it to be like Philippine peso. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back. So I think what happened during our flight was, there was an amount, since there was a like a Korean won. So the denomination was a Korean won. So we paid via Philippine peso during that time, but the denomination in the airline is Korean won. So a certain amount was deducted, and the amount deducted was the prevailing rate, prevailing exchange rate during the time of purchase. But during the time of refund, I'm not so sure what the airline would use, but basically there would be differences in terms of the exchange rate. You're gonna get the same. So I got the same amount of Korean won, but it was multiplied with a different exchange rate because a lot of changes happen. So I think that's the equal thing here. It will be still equal if there would be the same denomination. But yep, if you use another card or another currency and such, it might be different. Also, there are instances when the the tickets or the refunds is gonna be lower. Usually, airline would charge cancellation fees, and uh, yeah, or they would deduct a certain amount in your refunds because there are costs that are unavoidable. And yep, this is why you really need to check the rules on cancellations. So as much as possible, for me, I usually read fine prints of the tickets. Like, for example, there are certain airlines that states that if they have canceled for 4 hours, you're entitled to a certain perks and such. You're entitled for a refund without any other costs and such. So make sure you just read those things. I know it's a lot, but it might save you a lot of money along the way. Also, there are instances when it's in the clauses that when the airline is at fault, then uh, you could actually claim for food. You could actually claim for accommodation and such. So just make sure you read those things. Different airlines would have different rules, but if it's their fault, as much as I think you could really claim like certain things from them, but just make sure you've read those terms properly. And also, in terms of the rules on cancellation regarding fortuitous events or things that are beyond your control or beyond our control, for example, there would be a storm, or I believe what happened in 2020 in the Philippines was a volcano erupted, and then uh, the skyways the skyways, the runways had ashes, and so the airplanes cannot land. So there's certain uh, things that happened before in terms of cancellation. But anyway, yeah, just make sure you know these things. The reason why I keep on highlighting these things is because I've seen a lot of people getting frustrated at the end of the day. Like especially for those who purchase budget airlines, and then the airline would suddenly change their schedule, or the airline uh would suddenly do certain things, and then they get charged along the way. So I hope you really read these things. Anyway, oh, okay, like the last thing that I would want to highlight is if you're on a short term flight, do not purchase in-flight meals anymore. Like for example, Manila to Taiwan is only 2 hours. You don't need like a full-blown meal. You could just buy from the airport if you're really hungry, or you could just not eat at all. Just drink water along the way. Usually for me, for 3 to 4 hour flights, I just sleep in the airplane, and so I won't be able to be hungry. I won't be able to feel my hunger. Or what you could do is you could buy some chocolates. Like usually, what I eat on short term flights would be Kit Kat, or just something you can nibble on. But you don't need to buy like a full blown meal anymore, unless you're on a long haul flight. So yeah, I think you could invest on in flight meals if you're on a long haul flight. If you're thinking, oh, why is she talking about in flight meals? Isn't it part of the plane ticket in itself? Maybe if you're asking that, you've only tried the premium airlines, but majority of the budget airlines do not have in-flight meals. But for those of you who have already purchased premium tickets, then good for you. You have your in-flight meals for free. But yep, these are the things that you could cut down on if you really want to travel on a budget. So in general, I think I've had a lot of thoughts here, and I've really highlighted the cash refunds, or cancellations and such. But for now, that was very relevant during the pandemic. But for now, I think you could really just consider the general principles, which is looking into the dates, looking into the promos, or uh, yeah, strategizing based on location. So I think I've said a lot of things already, but as I have mentioned, I might try to do more research on how to properly maximize Google Flights, because that's the it thing right now. So I think this is it for episode 6. If you have any travel tips, or if you have other travel questions that I may be able to answer, please comment them down below, and I'll try my best to to answer your questions. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.